Good evening. Today is Wednesday, April 23rd, 2025. It's 6 p.m. I'd like to call this special meeting for the Board of Selectmen to order.
Linda Grappo.
Troy Lemire.
Paul Marino.
Paul Harrington.
Todd Archulacci.
Glenn Albanesius.
William Hester.
Candy Perez.
William Pozo.
Please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Item 3, the 2022 bond project issuance number 2. Paul?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With me tonight is our finance director and also our budget and grant analysis. Do you guys want to stay over there or you want to come?
We're good here.
You're good there? Okay.
We're like the Muppets over here. Like, what's their names?
I think Tom called those the support table or something. We were setting up the
Stadler
room.
and Waldorf.
Yeah. So as we talked about at the Board of Selectmen meeting on Monday night, that we do need to go and get an issuance of the original bond that was voted on back in April of 2022. The town went out and asked the voters for $23.3 million. Shortly after the approval, the town went out and borrowed $6 million for roads, sidewalks, and drainage. We want to continue the projects, so we were recommending, and I'll walk through, but I'll get to the bottom number right away. We do want to recommend that we go out and ask for another $8 million off of the $23.3 million original bonding that was approved back in April of 2022. You go to this sheet that kind of looks like this. Yep, it should be the top one. You can see cash needed for costs that incurred through 3/31/2025 was just over $4.7 million. Cash needed for anticipated projects from 4/1/2025 all the way through 6/30/2026, roughly totaling about $3.3 million. The total recommendation from our team is going to be $8 million. I'll answer questions there, and then when we get into the budget, there's going to be needed some modifications in terms of if you ultimately decide that you want to go out and take out $8 million against the $23.3 million that was originally approved back in April of 2022. Any questions to start?
I just,
Go ahead.
I
Candy,
just want to
then
make
Linda.
sure that everybody, not here, but everybody understands that reason we took money in stages was so that we didn't have money sitting in the bank that we were paying interest for when we didn't have the capacity to do all the work all at once. So now that we have the capacity to do the next steps, that's why the next second amount of money is needed.
It's an excellent point. The board at the time, although the town authorized $23.3 million, felt that we can't go out and take all $23.3 million. We'd be paying interest on that money, and simply put, you're never going to be able to start all of those roadway projects all at once anyways, so let's borrow it in tranches. What's here tonight before this board is to go out and take tranche number 2 to pay some of the projects and continue the projects moving forward.
Part of that board bond authorization was also there's reimbursements that are coming in for approximately $6 million of that.
That is correct.
Of those expenditures.
Linda?
Yeah, do we have projects that will be done for this? Are these the ones, Case Avenue?
I'm not sure which.
There was on this list.
It was on, yeah, I'm gonna switch.
Okay.
It was on the
Okay.
bigger, that big printout sheet.
This number has already been done, Linda. It's
Okay.
through 3/31/25.
That,
And this is for this year's stuff.
I got,
I don't know if all the projects were done that were bonded, but
so the $8 million that we're agreeing to pay, the projects that will be included in that,
so you're gonna,
in the green?
in the green section down
okay,
there. Yep,
okay.
that is correct.
Thank
It
you.
takes us all the way through June of '26.
Thank you.
June of 26, yes.
I just got a quick question on the interest payments. So
we already borrowed some money, and I'm not really familiar with what we borrowed, but on top of, so the 8 million, are these the interest payments to 2045 up to date with the 8 million and not the rest of the money that we are borrowing?
That is correct. So this would be, if you go into your budget documents, currently, right now, we are obviously paying interest and principal on the original first tranche of money,
Right.
first issuance. This will be another debt service payment. You'll see the breakdown in fiscal year '26, which begins July 1st. We're going to have a small interest-only payment, and then in '27, you're gonna have an interest and principal payment. Right now, I'll note, we did look at issuance over the last year for several municipalities around the state. I think we might have looked at 25 of them. I can't, and bond counsel and banks can't tell you what the interest rate's gonna be. We started the morning at 3.5. We met this afternoon as a team. We felt that it potentially could be 3.5, but we wanted to give you a more conservative approach and say it may be as high as 4%. It may be 4.25 based on the market. Nobody knows what the market's gonna do. If this gets approved tonight, we're gonna get to work right away as a team to start issuing all of the paperwork needed. The soonest we think we're gonna be able to go out and borrow this money, and that's moving at rocket speed, would probably be early July, might be end of July. And if anyone knows what the market's gonna do over the next 3 months, let me know. But we don't think it's gonna go too crazy. We don't see it going to 6%. I also don't see it going to 2%. So that's why I wanted to give you guys what we felt was a fair projection of 4. We may come in at 3.5, 3.85, might come in at 4.15, but we figured 4 was a good way to just split the baby and say, this is what we think it's gonna look over the next 20 years.
Okay, my second part of the question, when this was presented, I was a selectman at the time. We were told that these interest payments wouldn't raise taxes. Do we have a mechanism to make sure that this does not happen for next year?
Excuse me, that was never said.
Yes, it was.
By who?
Josh?
I wasn't here.
It wasn't said.
But I
So we're going from this year's 186 to 741,000 next year. So we
So
have
when
to
you say-
3/4 of a mil.
when you say this year, you mean next year? Because
Correct.
that 186
It's
doesn't
this year,
start.
excuse me, yes.
So that's a July, technically it's gonna be due 6 months after we take out the money. So let's say January of 2026, that initial payment will be due. The next payment won't be due until July 1st of 2027, yes. I gotta make sure I gotta keep kicking
So
dates out. Oh, there you go.
our budget for the town is gonna go up, roughly $600,000 for next year.
What do you mean by, and by next
Well,
year,
it's
you mean
going from
July
180
1st?
Yes.
So July
I'm
1st,
talking the following year.
27.
Yeah, 27.
27, so in 27, what we projected, $741, $741,053. You gotta do the interest and the principal,
Correct.
Troy. So you said 500, but it's 741.
Well, I'm saying it's going up 500 because we're at 186 for this year.
For 26.
Okay, I see what you're saying.
So we have
Yes,
to find $500,000 in revenue for next year's budget, is what I'm
Maybe
asking.
more.
maybe more,
Maybe
because
more.
when we get into the budget discussions, because right now we have this economic stabilization fund, which we are going to propose that the board use to cover the interest payment for the 26 payment. Now, when we go out and if the board allows, if we go out and borrow $8 million, there's gonna be a premium that gets paid. What that premium is, nobody knows. At the last time when the town went out and borrowed the original tranche of money, Anne Marie, how much was the premium that we got?
It's actually on that economic stabilization,
4%.
no, it's $786,000.
So,
That very first
yep,
line
got it.
item, we went out, I'm just gonna come up here, because I just wanna talk briefly to Troy's point about the debt service not going up, I just wanna clarify for him. So when we went out to bond in April of 2023.
Anne Marie, can you turn the mic?
Hit that mic, just hit the Got it.
When we went out in April 2023, the amount that we received in premium on that debt issuance was $785, almost $786,000. That can be used to, and typically is used by towns to offset your debt service payments. And that's kind of, some towns will take that all into income at one time, some of them will amortize that over the life of the bond. We had a schedule back when Josh was here, how to utilize some of those funds in order to offset the onboarding of the new debt. And I think where you're talking about where it may have been said that there wouldn't be no increase, with the initial first tranche that we went out for, we had debt service that was maturing. So if you actually look at your budget in the debt service, the debt administration section, you'll notice that there's a line item that says bonds June 2005 projects. We were paying principal of $388,000, give or take a year. When we issued the first round of the tranche one on the 2022 bond referendum, we took on principal of $370,000. So that is where there was pretty much no impact, because that was to replace the old debt that was maturing. But anything beyond that, the town was carrying zero debt. So anything beyond that, part of the referendum was that there will be debt service attached to that. There will be an increase in debt service, because when you have zero and you go to potentially $23 million, you're going to take on debt service.
Understood.
And the idea, also the other idea at the time was by using the stabilization fund, because that old bond was going off, but Hinsdale was coming on at the same amount as that bond, and then the road bond was coming in with the, with having come from no debt at all, right? And the water and sewer fund money too was also a bond debt, but it was on the water and sewer side. But other than that, there was no debt in town. And so the idea was that by using the economic stabilization fund was to let economic growth catch up.
And that's a way to smooth out your debt payments, so you don't have a huge spike in one year. You can kind of come in potentially at a step level so that your debt service comes up. And that is part of the reason why you'll also see in line 2 there, fiscal 2023 debt service surplus. We chose to expense that to fiscal 23 and transfer what we did not use in debt service that we had put in the budget to reserve that additional $468,000 to offset additional debt that we knew was going to be coming in the next couple of years.
Other questions?
I think one of the things I just want to say is when you guys were here on Monday night, you and Jim, it was good to see that all the projects had gotten advanced to this point. Because for a while there was things in planning and were going to happen but hadn't happened. And so when I look back on that discussion from Monday night, I thought it was good that these things have moved along so that they can become complete. Because there was a lot of concern that they weren't getting completed. And now it was like, it was a good cascading of, well, these, like you have on your sheet here, that you, for cost incurred and what we're planning to do in the next year.
So that $4.7 million that you see there, that is the amount of money that we have expended beyond the cash that we did in the first bond issue. Between June 30th of 2024, just for your information, and 3/31 of 2025, Selectwoman Perez, noting that there's been significant progress in the road bonds projects, we were at $6.5 million expended as of June 30th of 2024. At March 31st of 2025, we are at almost $11 million. So there has been significant progress in what has been spent. That does not take into consideration what we're getting back in grants on some of those projects for Elm Street, Case Avenue Bridge, but that is just gross level of spend, that there has been a significant ramping up of the progress that that Mr. Rollins has taken on.
And we have paid that, and we're getting this to
That is
pay it
out
back.
that is out the door that we have paid to
Yes.
date, yes.
Any other comments or questions? a motion?
I make a motion to authorize the town manager and director of finance to proceed with a $8 million bond issue in accordance with the road and bridge infrastructure bond as approved at referendum in April of 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you.
Moving on to item number 4, discussion, possible action to move the proposed 2025-26 budget to referendum. So we need to do some updates first.
We also have one additional that we did not put on that sheet that Tom just noted on the capital schedule.
Okay.
We need to put that dollar amount in that road and bridge improvement line item.
You're right. Okay. So we'll do the bond first, and then we'll do that, and then obviously turn it over to the board for any changes that they wish to make or see where we stand. So as we talked about, there's this economic stabilization fund. If you switch to this sheet, you'll see the breakdown, and currently in that budget or in that actual economic stabilization fund, there's I'm just gonna round up, there's roughly $591,000 in that fund. That fund hangs out separately from the undesignated fund balance, savings account, rainy day fund money, formerly known as the general fund. So there's $590,000. We're recommending that we put $250,000 in the account transfers and economic stabilization fund. It is in the budget. I spent many minutes trying to find it earlier today. And then Tom goes, oh, it's on the bottom of page 1. And then when it's the last line item, it's the one you probably don't necessarily, it's the first item of page 2 that actually did exist in the budget. So we're recommending that we put $250,000 as a revenue line item, taking it from that fund that has close to $591,000. And then on the expense side of things, we are looking to fund infrastructure bond issuance number 2 of $250,000. What the $250,000 is a combined total of the initial $186,667, which is the interest only that will come due roughly January of 2026, plus the bond issuance costs that we're going to have to end up paying Pullman and Comley and attorney's fees and all of that, totaling $250,000. That would be the recommendation for the changes for the budget that will help pay the $8 million issuance of this bond in next year's budget.
Do we have any questions from the board? Do we have a motion?
I make a motion for the following line item changes to the fiscal year 2026. Proposed budget for estimated debt service interest and issuance costs related to $8 million bond issue.
And then this board, and I like it, likes to list, if you can read the next two. The
Okay.
account numbers, this way it's all on the record.
Revenue line item 1-999-799-0001-0000. Transfers in Economic Stabilization Fund, $250,000. To the expense line item 1-913-3202-0009-0001, maybe too many zeros there. Interest / infrastructure bond issue number 2 in the amount of $250,000.
Thank you, Troy. Is there a second? Second. Thank you, Bill. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous?
I think it's important, but I'll point out just for all that are watching, the items that we just took place right now had no bearing on where we left off the other night. We're still gonna be at that 7.09. We added a revenue, we added an expense, but we're gonna still be at exactly where we left the other night, which was, I believe, 1.9, 3, 7.09% change. So, now Anne Marie, you had something that, coming out of left field, that's okay. What did you guys discover over at the table?
So, in the capital expenditures schedule, there is a line item entitled, is it in this one, Tom?
Yes, it's number 30, road and bridge construction.
So up on the screen, you'll see item 30, road and bridge construction. I'm trying to,
That number, we need to add that to the selectmen recommended, and we need to add that under the, if there is a bond column, I think I'm looking at the wrong schedule. If they're a bond-funded column, and I'm just gonna round this number for you. And this is part of the detail that we presented on Monday. I clicked on the right schedule. It's doing the same thing here, hold on. Of $5,430,000.
I'm trying to make it better, but this thing keeps popping up when I obviously highlight. It's gonna keep popping up, but I can, let's just make it bigger.
Are you trying to highlight it?
Yeah, here we go.
If you just click the number
No,
over
it's
there.
actually the exact dollar amount that was under the department request.
Correct. So
By chance.
what we're doing is, again, just showing full transparency of, in the capital projects, $5.43 million being done in road and bridge reconstruction. And then we're also going to put in a bond line item, $5.4 million, which has the expense and the revenue offsetting.
We need to motion those changes?
We would
or
need to
those
motion it, yeah, because we're now into the selectmen proposed, so, you know, to, in the capital improvement project Schedule D of the budget, to edit item 30, the road and bridge reconstruction, to include $5.430000 million in the 26 fiscal year budget. I'll come back with the,
So moved.
uh,
Second. Thanks for the read.
Any other discussion? We have a motion, we have a second. And do we need to motion that into an expense line as well, or just the bottom line?
well, you want to take a vote on that one first?
Okay.
And then we'll do the expense, or the revenue line.
All in favor? Unanimous?
And then,
That doesn't come out of general fund. That just will be in the column under funding sources in the capital schedule, under the 2022 IIP bond package. So that will not impact your revenue or your expenditures line item. It's really more of a disclosure.
just a disclosure, okay. Do we want that, do we want to, I think then we should place, and also, I mean, the place, let me just slide over. Do we want to show in that, or it will,
Yeah, Tom will make the update.
Tom will make the update on it, all right, so then we don't need another motion to put that in that column. Okay, so, we're good with the changes that we needed to go do all of this. I turn it over to the mayor and to the board, obviously, of any other changes they wish to potentially
Anyone
make.
have any changes they would like to bring up? Troy?
I got a question for Paul. I'm concerned, very concerned about the roof repairs in the school. What kind of mechanism do we have to not have a huge mill rate increase for the roof?
kind of mechanism we have. I think the roofing project, correct me if I'm wrong, 1.2, 1.8, too many millions lately.
We received,
The estimate you received.
Troy's person looked at it and said significantly more. Troy's person was suggesting, I'll say skim coating, but that may not be the professional term. That might be a viable solution that would get it back in the range that we had an estimate of 1.8 million. Would skim coating with the reimbursement?
I believe you got two quotes, probably, coating and/or full replacement.
I mean, so I guess I'll get on a mini soapbox for a second. You know, school is something that you're gonna have forever because we're always gonna need to educate kids. My belief always when I got into government was I didn't like putting Band-Aids. It's up to the board, but I didn't like putting Band-Aids on situations. I like fixing things permanently, checking the box, then moving on to the next thing. Where a skim coat could be a viable, less expensive option. I think we're gonna spend money, it's temporary, and we're gonna be back, and prices are gonna be higher. I think, Troy, to your question, I think maybe we should, you know, once we get out of, you know, this meeting, we should bring back the solar projects, because that was an opportunity where the savings could potentially.
So just to kind of lay things out, for us to be able to get reimbursement for the roof project, there's a whole process that we have to go through per the state. A building committee has to be formed representing numerous entities. Then we have to hire a professional to provide the ultimate solution for the roof. That has to be approved by the state. And then we go out to bid. And then we go through the process. And we can be reimbursed as the project's rolling along, but the town would certainly have to provide cash for it. So that's just kind of in a nutshell, the sorts of things that we would have to do. So it's not a quick, get it done this week sort of thing.
Nancy, if we went to the solar way, because the original time when we all sat down and we started talking the solar project, it was me that brought up the reimbursement. If we went the way of solar before the reimbursement came up, it was almost as if we were getting a free roof because of the savings we were getting from the electricity. We would go out and borrow all of the money for the solar and for the roof. The savings we would get on the line items of the electricity bills in the budget would be paying the debt service back, and then eventually it would be cash positive. That was the pitch, and we've sat through. This began, I think, last summer. We sat through. Nora, actually, you were there as well, and Todd, you were there too. So, you know, if this board would like, again, I'm a huge believer in solar. I have it myself, you know, at my house. I think if we identify there's a problem at Pearson, I have the board chair here, I have the superintendent here, I have the business manager here. I'm gonna ask them, would you like us to revisit that solar project to try and get us a free roof?
I would like that very much.
Let's engage them again and.
I mean,
and
does
go from
anybody
there.
know, has that found out that the roof was bad? Did anybody give any estimates on its lifespan left right now? I mean, is it leaking at this point, or?
It leaks now, it leaks into the library, it leaks into classrooms, like it leaks for sure.
So it's 45 years of age, you know most roofs last 30. I think we're on, I think
we're
we've
on,
worn out.
wing
I
and a
think,
prayer.
I think we've gotten our monies.
3 of the 4 roofs are 40+ years old. The gentleman, Chris, that you sent, said typically you can do 2 roofs, much like you can at your home. And
Right.
he said he found about 5.
5?
Apparently, we just kept building up and up. There's no question it'll need to be done, but I think, you know, we're patching holes as they come so that we can do a methodical, reimbursable plan, either through solar or doing it ourselves. But I think the coating way is probably not reimbursable, so probably
Yeah, that's not
doing it right is.
That
well
roof at this
said.
point, 45 years, needs to be stripped and replaced.
Yeah, I think the coating is the simple Band-Aid fix, which is, we're gonna be back here a year to 2 years from now taking it on, and who knows where, potentially if we decide to go the solar route, what the credits look like. Right now, you know, the solar credits exist. I think, you know, Selectman Lemire, I think to your point, let us gather back and, you know, I can't promise it'll be at the Mays meeting, getting a hold of the reps from the particular solar company, but if this board wants to move us in a direction, because ultimately, this board will need to approve the funding, because we're gonna go to Bank of America for a loan of, I forgot the amount of money, but that includes the roof and includes the solar, but then ultimately, it wouldn't be any debt. It's debt issuance, but no debt service, because the savings is gonna be paid for by
Yeah.
what we would normally pay in the electric bills,
It's 90-some-odd thousand a year.
something like that.
I'd advise us to do that as fast as possible, because we're not sure that that's gonna be out there anymore.
Yeah, we'll get it done. That's fine. Well, that's easy. Yep.
When we met last with them, they needed to go back and sort of redo
Yeah.
because enough time has passed since their original proposals.
Yep.
So I'll go through them and make sure they're working on it.
Yeah, it wasn't so long ago, we all sat down and met, and we tasked them with a few things, but we'll rattle their chains a little
You
bit.
wanna make sure Dave goes and checks the sealants that are leaking to make sure we don't get a mold issue, because that'll be even worse.
So the recent news was that evidently Hinsdale School
Oh.
is also eligible too, which would improve the savings and the cash flow, so.
Okay.
that's- Yes.
And I apologize, I should say that, I don't know how many people are watching at home. You should come up, 'cause they're not gonna hear you, and they're gonna, it's gonna sound like we're talking to ourselves, and we're not. So if you guys want, scoot up there, turn the mics on, but it doesn't pick up that far, and that mic's even off, so.
Well, I think the important thing here is if we're not gonna do anything inside this budget, there needs to be a commitment outside of here to either do the state reimbursement route or the solar, but to get the project moving that we've talked about prior to this because of the capital line items. So I asked you to scroll that up, because if we have to go through state reimbursement, there needs to be money for them to be able to hire somebody. And so I was looking through there, if there shouldn't be a line in there or somewhere where we could get, how much is it, like probably 50,000 to hire somebody? Or
50 to 80 probably.
Yeah, 50 to 80,000.
We have to go to RFP,
Right.
and then bring in the
So-
engineering, you know, the companies that are gonna bid it.
So is there you know, you don't want to add anything at this point, right? So are there any trades that we can make, things that could hold off while this is happening? Because if we don't put it in here, then the only choice will be that solar replacement. Because it will be a loan that's not reimbursed by the state. So you'd be more free to do it, right, with the solar company?
Yep,
So there'd be more freedom to do it without having to have all that other stuff.
you are correct.
But will the solar company do a full replacement, as Bill is recommending?
Yeah,
versus-
oh, yes, the
They would
solar company
recommend
was doing a
that.
full replacement.
Full-
Yes,
yeah.
full rip,
They don't wanna put their panels on a
Yeah.
pad roof.
yeah. The solar
Their,
company was,
Estimates, though, their original paperwork was designed probably a year and a half ago now, so they said they would have to go back out, re-estimate what it would cost to do the roof. So I would consider that as something we have to get new numbers on before we get too serious about it.
So do we have money to pay for that when the time comes, or should we put it in now?
well, you got two paths you're going down. The first path, if we went with the solar, wouldn't require any cash outlay. We would then go out and borrow X amount of dollars to pay for a roof and for the solar. We wouldn't need to bring in the engineers. If we go the route of getting a 73% reimbursement for the state, we're gonna go to an RFP process, we're gonna bring in engineering firms, they're gonna put together the scope of work. Then we're gonna submit that to the state's either gonna give us an okay or not. And then we're gonna have to go appropriate roughly $1.8 million, if that's what the price comes in at. We're gonna have to go to our voters and approve $1.8 million, because although it is state reimbursement, the state wants you to have absolutely full coverage that, you know, you've gotten the approval. And then as the project gets underway, we'll submit, you know, every couple of months, we'll get reimbursements back from the state of Connecticut. Initial thoughts were if we go that route, we're gonna need anywhere from $50,000 to $80,000 to start the RFP process. If we go the solar route, that's just us sitting down with the company again. We're not gonna need any real money to get that going. As Selectwoman Perez says, there's nothing in the budget if we go down that route. If, you know, you put it in the budget and then we ultimately decide that solar is the better deal, you have,
Have money left over for the next time.
you have $50,000, $80,000 that it becomes unspent. You know, it's,
So let me ask, what is the undesignated fund balance and percentage right now? Undesignated fund balance and percentage right now? Because I know you took 700,000 something over to it from where we were.
yep.
So I know we were getting close to that 16.7.
Because I'm not gonna,
So just from a time standpoint, I think, if I'm hearing correctly, it would move much faster with a solar project than the state project, is that what I'm hearing correctly?
Not necessarily.
Well, with the approvals from the state, by the time they.
yeah,
The solar thing takes a long time too.
we would obviously be not relying on any approvals other than from the board. In my eyes, yeah, Mr. Mayor, I think you're correct. I think it's a much quicker track to go with the solar than it is with a outside vendor. But now you gotta weigh this whole thing out. When you get 72% back from the state, that obviously drives the cost down. But on the flip side of it, you're gonna pay for a new roof with the energy savings. It's a tough decision, and you know, if you were to ask me, you know, Mr. Town Manager, which direction do you think the town should go in? My recommendation is I think we should really vet that solar project through and through, instead of going out and getting $80,000, getting an engineer in. We might be looking, because you're gonna have a small window, you know, by the time, we may have to go through the winter.
We have to.
With solar, we may be able to pull, I can't guarantee it, we may be able to pull
Yeah,
off
but
solar.
why did not the solar go through? I mean, so if they vetted the solar, what were the issues around the solar that didn't allow us to have the solar?
You wanna come up?
Well, I guess that's,
It's not my specialty, man, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, well,
But at least you were there. Gives you an advantage.
That's right.
that doesn't-
Paul, when you just came on board, we met, Todd,
Yeah.
we met, and we were with Nancy, and we had the person from Solar on a Zoom meeting. You might recall that
Yes.
up in the third floor, fourth floor. There were two concerns. One was your cash flow piece that we worried about in terms of how this town would roll that money through, and I didn't follow you on that. And that was one of the bigger concerns you had when you first came in. The second one was the salesman's numbers on what our reimbursements would be changed from his first
Yep.
proposal. So we were examining those numbers and wondering why these numbers were changing, and that was a big question for us.
And the third one, where this one, and you'll remember this one, is that they don't give us a performance guarantee. So we're gonna go out and we're gonna borrow X amount of dollars. Now, the hope is that we're constantly producing solar and we don't have an Eversource bill. But if we go through a real bad winter, where our panels are blocked with snow for the entire, 3-4 months of winter, we're gonna have an electricity bill and we're going to have a Bank of America note that we need to pay. There's just so much money that, the Board of Education has in that you're gonna have potentially two bills. So we went back and we asked them that we wanted a performance guarantee. They said no. They then kept changing numbers. The last time we met, which was it 2 months? Everything feels like yesterday.
Months ago.
Was it months ago? Felt like
Yeah,
yesterday.
Freeman.
No, this was before, you weren't at this meeting.
Okay.
This was the superintendent, Nora, I don't even think you were at the meeting. I think it was maybe just the three of us. The numbers kept changing. We tasked the individual, and I don't think they ever got back to us. blurt it out publicly. Maybe we should just go to an RP and get other companies, because people are gonna be hungry to put solar on this roof.
Nancy and I were talking just behind, the part of that project too is only to wrap the roof. And so if you're talking that there's multiple layers on the roof, this adds more weight to the roof. It wasn't to provide a strip down and a complete new.
I thought it was a strip
that
down.
has to be,
I
thought it was
remember them
a whole
talking about
strip
wrap.
down.
Yeah, he didn't get into a lot of detail.
I thought it was a
on the
strip.
last time.
Okay.
But those were the things, those are the variables with the solar piece of the conversation, so that's where we
So-
left off.
So there's several companies that do
Oh, yeah.
what you're talking about doing. I have the name of 3 or 4 of them that turned me down at work because I didn't have enough square footage to make it worth their while. You have, how much square footage? 90,000 square feet. I was looking at probably 35,000 square feet, and it just wasn't enough. I can I'm not getting involved in the solar thing, but I can forward you a list of several of these large commercial companies. Some of these new panels, you talk about the performance guarantee, some of these new panels actually have built-in heaters that work off the electricity being generated, so they heat and melt the ice and snow off them all winter long.
Yep.
So they're called self-cleaning panels. I'll forward that information this week to you guys. I'll copy all of you on it if you want.
So, while we're gonna be doing that, it might be prudent, the reason I asked for the fund balance number, the rainy day fund, is if we were to allocate, let's say, $50,000 in the capital for, an engineer, right?
Mm-hmm.
And we take it from the rainy day fund. If you go solar, that money can sit there and go back into the rainy day fund at the end of the year. If you do need it, you use it, but by taking it from the undesignated fund balance, which I believe is the technical term, the undesignated fund balance of $50,000, put it in the capital offsets, no mill rate change, no percentage change. It just changes the undesignated fund balance by that 50,000. We all need to know that we are at that 16.7% recommended amount of our undesignated fund balance. Because we take the $700,000 out of that in the budget that we've already injected into that. So that if things come along during the year, for whatever reason they come along, there really isn't a lot of wiggle room to go get more funds out of that unless you start dropping, which will then change the bond ratings, et cetera, et cetera. So,
did we get the number right? Did I miss it?
So you are right now with the $700,000 that has already been allocated in the proposed budget. We are within $3,000 of that 16.7%.
So we can't do it.
well, in the budget, our current year budget, right? So going through our current year budget, there, and I don't know if this is even part of it. I don't think it is under the debt service, and Anne Marie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, because you use the economic stabilization fund for in the bond for this current year, there are $210,000 in principal and $185,000 in interest. But that came out, is that all economic stabilization fund money?
No,
So in the current budget, there was 210 and 185, how much of it was economic stabilization?
$200,000. So there was an additional $200,000 slated to come out of expenditures that was not covered by economic stabilization that we will not use. That is not to say we may not have other line items in the budget that are over budget that are going to offset that when we get to June 30th. And we may have shortfalls in the revenue side also that is going to impact come in at the end of the day as of June 30th.
So we should be putting at least something in there in case we decide to go to the RFP.
Well, if we do that, then you just said the fund balance is, undesignated fund balance would go below 16.7.
Well, I don't wanna take it from there.
We don't wanna
I'm
take
talking to add it to the budget. We don't have a choice.
So my question also now is that if the other school is meeting, and if they have a reduction, then maybe we can apply that.
Good. It's $80,000.
But I don't know if they will or won't.
Right.
So if we knew,
I would feel more safe that we had it in there and then be able to put it back later than, or use it later if we didn't, you know, them not have it and have to come up with it.
So,
or in the capital account that you had up there, you could take a few thousand from a couple of the items as well.
if I may recommend, let me, first of all, what's your number for the RFP engineer? Is it 50, is it 75, is it 80? Where I want to go is, if we inject $50,000 into the budget as it stood on Monday night, what does that look like, percentage-wise, all of that? And then we can back off from there, whatever you, so which, I guess let's start, what do you think your number should be for this engineering? I've heard 50.
I would say the highest number to be on the safe side, and then, I mean, how are you gonna, what
I
are you
don't
gonna do
know
if it's
what an engineer
35,000
for a
more?
roof is. I don't.
I don't either.
You could be looking at 100 plus, honestly, for outside engineering. It's, the costs are ridiculous. I'm doing a $15 million upgrade right now to our building. And so far, I'm $2.5 million into engineering costs. For a $15 million
That's what I'm saying. I mean,
project. It's,
We know this is coming.
So I think you gotta go,
if you go to solar route,
yeah.
and you can find a company that'll work with you on the roof, you're not gonna have to go with the engineering. If we go for the state
know
reimbursement.
that.
Here's the thing with the state. Yes, they'll reimburse, they'll always give us money, whatnot, but you have to go with engineering. You have to use state-approved materials, state-approved contract. So the overall cost of the job is much larger,
Always.
even though you're getting 70% of it back. It's, am I wrong?
I'm not gonna
You've
say
been in this
you're-
business a little longer than I am,
It
but.
always works that way on my side over here.
You know, I know contractors that could do that bridge for, you know, $1.2 million, but with a state project, it turns into a $9 million project.
Hey.
Okay, so let's just do this just for a starting point. Amber, do you wanna, cause,
No, I just want to give you, because this is just my schedule of a roll forward of the fund balance. If you were to take $800,000 versus $700,000, that will bring you your fund balance percentage that we have unassigned fund balance remaining as of June, and we're talking about as of June 30th of 2024, plus whatever has been committed for 25. So take off the Pearson Boiler project, the Next Gen project, and then the $800,000 you would be committing in the 2026 budget as a percentage of revenues, which is the, one of the guidelines, you look at revenues and or expenditures. You would have remaining 16.46% of undesignated fund balance.
Will that change the bond ratings? Being just that shy
Yeah, I mean,
under,
you're probably not.
We're gonna have to obviously go out for a rating call. Listen, I can speak
It's really a
confidently.
guideline,
When you're
I
at
think,
60,
right?
yeah, that's not a state mandate. You look at some of these towns around Connecticut, some of them have 5%, some have no reserves, like zero. So when you have, you know, the strength of a 16.7, 16.6, when you go rating, I don't see us being brought down in our second to highest rating that we have right now. Not, you know,
Because you
you're
also
at
have the
16.5,
offset, when
16.7.
you go for a rating, so part of this whole bond issuance is we have to go for a ratings review. So we sit down, we have a call with the analysts, and then they go into session, and then they make their recommendation to the committee, and we get, you know, either an update or we stay where we are. But part of that is they touch on a variety of different subjects: economic development, your policies and procedures, your, you know, your fund balance. And one of those things is your investment in capitals and your 5-year capital. They want to see that you're planning for the future. And I think there's a positive to that you are utilizing
Planning
some
that.
of your capital, that I don't know that they would ding us because we are planning ahead and not waiting for the emergency. So I think there's potentially an offset that would have no impact.
so to me, that's a no-brainer, because like Candy said, we could take it back and put it back in if we don't have to use it if we go solar. So, do you need a motion for that?
Well, can we just talk about it a little bit more?
Well, you get discussion after the motion, but yeah. I mean,
I
we
mean,
have to be prepared for this.
Well, yeah, we've been wanting to be prepared for it.
Right.
It was put into the budget request. So if we go back to the capital, can we go back to your capital?
Yep.
list? It'd be really great
I'm just trying to think.
not to go below 16.7.
I'm trying to think if there's a better way to view it, and let me, that was nice, but let me go to a different
Because that has to be the
slide.
current, what you currently, part of that, what, 700? There's certain things that are off limits because they're paying back things already paid. So is there a way to find some money from a couple lines?
Was this a special or the regular?
This, I am in the special meeting slides from the April 10th meeting. You'll see,
So the pink are the one that we can touch?
no,
Pink are the ones that he was gonna. at
those
one
are the
point-
ones that we're potentially going to remove.
remove.
If you had asked me for a $400,000
Right.
potential cut to capitals, so.
So,
We did just eliminate the turnout gear, didn't we?
so the Sue Grossman feasibility study,
What was that for?
right? Is there any money over there for that?
We're using non-general fund money of $28,000. That was from a grant that was earmarked to do that, so we wouldn't be able to reallocate that to the
So
road.
that's,
Not, yeah, you'll
So-
see, look,
what's the
particularly,
what's the ones funded by the $700,000?
so you got everything in the general fund here. Now, I know there's $400,000 in that solar, because that's gonna get dropped into the general fund as miscellaneous revenue and then spent out, that way. So if you're in the general fund line item here,
Right.
that's the money that we're either, taking into the solar project, or credit, and/or taxpayer funded.
Right, so if we look through that line,
You can take it off the wheeled excavator and then you get a cheaper wheeled excavator.
So the other one is the townwide guide rail replacement. We talked about that. That's mandated. Is there a
Yeah,
date on the
you
mandate?
don't wanna touch
Is there a
that.
di- Is
You
there a
just
date
have-
on the mandate?
well,
I'm
yeah.
not saying take it all from one line. I'm saying, can we get 5,000 here, 10,000 there? Drop the number from 100,000 to 50,000 from
Yeah,
the.
because these are all like hypothetical anyway, they're
Yeah,
not
so-
exact
So
numbers.
can we get 50,000 from the undesignated fund balance and 50,000 in a shift?
Well, how many we got? 1, 2, well, we don't even know which ones we can't touch,
Well,
right?
I guess to start, what number do you guys want to agree on in terms of how much do you want to fund? I think you just threw out 100, but I don't want to put words in
Sort
your
of
mouth.
where, I started at 50, then it went over to 100.
No, you
know,
went
I-
100, I was 80.
I don't, somehow it got to 100. Well, it's like, where in here is there anything?
Yeah, what do we have
5
that
here, 6
we
there.
can touch and what do we
two.
not have? that we
That-
can't
That's
touch?
why I asked about the guide rail replacement,
what?
right? So if it's mandated, Paul, the guide rail replacement, if it's mandated,
I'm sorry, the mayor,
the guide rail replacement,
Yes.
it's mandated.
it is
Is it
mandated.
mandated to be completed by 2029?
We're behind on that already.
We are behind, I don't know if it has a set
So
date,
could you
but
borrow a chunk of that and do part of them this year?
we did that last year. When one of the budgets had failed, we significantly hit that line and we brought it down to $75,000. It's a safety issue. The answer to that is yes. Yes. The answer to your question is yes. Last year, we originally asked for, I believe, $150,000. First budget failed, we dropped that thing to 75 grand, okay? So you want to keep funding consistent, okay, I'm sure Mr. Rollins won't be happy, but I can explain to him, we gotta deal with all the other, issues we have going on. Listen, there's 50 grand right there. You wanna drop it to the same level funding as you did in this year? Drop that to 75 grand. You're funding it at the same level you did in this current year, there's 50 grand right there.
So what if you?
Which one is that?
That's the townwide guardrail replacement.
Oh,
What if you,
I can't read
instead of 75 last year, what if you went 100 on that, grab 25 of that? And to Joyce's suggestion, yeah, wheeled excavator would be nice, but can we get one
We already have an excavator, we can get
Used
away with
or-
not that, having that.
Can we get like,
Used or something else for 200 grand.
So,
Or 225 and grab 75 from there.
All day
There's your
long you
100.
can,
is the $300,000,
that's a high
Well,
number.
so I gotta, so the wheeled excavator, if you go over, actually, the department request was 300, that actually isn't being funded by any mechanism.
it's not even
If you
there.
look, it's not there. Now, I'll just
I gotta
say
compare.
it, but no one's gonna,
Go ahead and say it.
no one's gonna wanna hear it. There's a large sum of money in general road repair, that I knew the answer to
Not
that.
happening.
I already knew the answer to that, so.
So Paul, if it's not in manager proposed, that means they didn't make it into the list?
Didn't make it in the, yeah, remember, if you go back
But
to.
that's with the $400,000 reduction. We didn't take the $400,000 reduction.
We didn't take, so if you go back to.
So the as proposed is actually the one we should be on. Because we put those back in.
We did, what sheet were?
You should be on the as proposed slide, not the $400,000 reduction.
Oh, there you go.
There they
Apologize.
are.
Yep, there you
the
go.
400 was just a hole waiting for the solar.
Waiting for the solar, correct.
Yeah,
If
so-
if we,
So all of these items on this page are in here.
Thank you,
all of
Paul.
those items on those page are in there,
So
yes.
we take the 65 from the wheeled excavator, and we take 25 from the guardrail,
Well, if you take
that's
65
90,000.
If you take 65 from the wheeled excavator, there is no wheeled excavator.
That's all right.
This is a partial payment.
It's just,
Yeah,
yeah.
I don't think we need that anyway.
Do we know, in your conversations with Public Works, what is the condition of the wheeled excavator? Will they get another year out of it, or is it toast?
We don't have one right now.
We don't have one, and I can tell you
But
that.
we do
out
have
of-
an excavator.
But this was Mr. Rollins paraphrasing quote to me. Cut everything, but I need a wheeled excavator, Paul. So that was the one item out of all of the items, and Mr. Rollins came in with the biggest list of items that he wanted. That is the one item that Mr. Rollins wanted.
The only thing that thing's good for is driving to the job site.
What's a public works facility upgrade, 25,000?
That is to help
We can take the
fund
money out of it, though.
the match of the direct congressional spend. The Congressman Larson's,
So it's something that's a match for something that's gonna happen down the road.
correct.
Which item is that?
The public works facility upgrade, the one where we get 2.5 million, but we have to spend 2.5 million to get it.
That is correct.
So $25,000 towards that is, can we take that? And can we take,
Police cruiser?
I'm gonna ask Tom to come up because he's the most versed in the items that are, you know,
Tied to the grants.
are most likely to not be able to be cut, so.
Police cruiser. Did we just get one?
you get them all, you have to get them all the time. If you don't, then you have a year where you're gonna need two at once. We finally got them all stabilized, so it's better to keep them. I'm just trying to find,
Yeah, I know what you're saying.
I'm just trying to find like 5 here, 5 there, 3 there, 5 there, so that we can split it in half from the undesignated and half from current. And then at the
So you're
end.
trying to raise how much out of this?
100,000.
How much are you trying to raise out of this
Maybe
list?
25. I think we budget the engineer at 75. Kind of split it where we think it is gonna be. At the end of this year, when we get to June, we can transfer some money to start the, I don't know, engage somebody. By then, we should kind of have an idea if you're going solar or not. And maybe,
I just want to get a jump on it, that's all.
So we have,
well, yeah,
and this is not something that any of us want to cut also, but I'm asking from a timing perspective, much like the guide rails, where we may not spend all of that money in this cycle. We have $250,000 for the drainage improvements at the lake. Is that gonna happen this year? Or is that a 2-year project where we
They
could?
started already.
That's gonna happen this year, but
but
this
it's
must
not
be
from the
so.
general fund.
And it's not from the general
from
fund?
the bonds.
That's from the bond of what we just took care of
Got it.
earlier in the evening.
And I'm just looking at all the $5,000 possibilities, and you start with the big ones, right?
If you have the, they're from a different fund.
I'm on a better slide now.
So we're looking for the ones that are in the general fund or not in the general fund?
Looking for the ones in the general fund, and I caution that some of the projects that are in the general fund are the fifth, sixth payment, and those should be one of the last items you take, because we've made a commitment to pay. You know, you look at plow truck number 7, replacement, that $43,343, off the top of my head, that may be the last or second to last payment, and then we own that truck outright. So, you obviously can't
Right.
necessarily take that out. Well, you can't.
Tom, what do you think? Where's the money hidden?
There's nothing.
Show me 80
It's
grand.
getting there. He's circling.
There's nothing hidden.
Well, that's true, there is nothing hidden.
So going back to the question of the Public Works facility, there is a $2.53 million grant attached to that money. We have the responsibility to find another X amount, which we're in the process of figuring out right now. There's a feasibility study currently underway right now to determine what that project will ultimately cost the town. So in excess to that 2.53 million, we will have to contribute something, but we know between now and whatever that number is and whatever that work commences, we're gonna have to do stuff to get ready for that project. So that 25,000 will, yes, be part of that match, but it will also be conducting work towards getting that facility done. So it might be environmental work, it might be stormwater management, it might just be temporary repairs even. That's largely dependent on what they find in the ongoing feasibility study as to what needs to be done first to get that money moving. Yep.
And that's a must. I took a up close, tight tour of that facility, and there's cinder blocks in that building I could claw through to the outside in probably under a minute
Yeah.
with my
Well,
fingers.
it's all a must, right?
I mean, it's
There's-
bad,
I mean, the
though.
roof is a must. That's a must, so, and that's gonna be bigger borrowing, you know, to get the public works facility done, even though we're gonna get money, we're still gonna have to borrow money. So that's why I was looking at the 25,000, because it's a small amount of what we're gonna need.
Does it make sense to walk through, you're looking at a different schedule than what's included in the budget, because what's included in the actual budget document, your capitals page, has a column that says general fund and fund balance, and then prior general fund. Thank you, Vanna. And maybe just have Tom run down the line items that are currently being funded, either in the general fund or fund balance, and then the prior committed column. And the prior committed column is the one that we can't cut those.
Right.
Those are items we potentially have purchased and are budgeting going forward to fund those purchases that have already been made. But the general fund, yes, and fund balance column are the items that are coming from the general fund funding or fund balance funding. That maybe he can walk through and just kind of give you, because there's not a lot of them. There's not very many of them.
That's what we
So before we do that, just I wanna, Candy, just to refresh my memory, right? You wanna take how much from the rainy day fund, or whatever, you know, better term for it, but you wanna take how much out of that? That keeps us
Well-
right above the 16 number?
Well, I mean, ideally, you wanna stay at 16.7 or better, right? Because you don't want to chance the bond rating, seeing how we're gonna go to bond. So if we took 100,000, we dropped to 16.4. So if we were to stay at 16.7, how much could we take? If we took 50, where would it put us? At 16.7? 16.71?
You are at 16.71 right now with $700,000.
That we already took.
Right.
So anything
So
we
where
take-
you are right now, you are at the baseline
Yeah.
of 16, you are just about at the baseline of 16.7.
So if you did another 50,000, what would that do to the number?
That's
Already
the
said
number
it's
that I gave you, which was
16.4
the
or something.
16.6.
Oh, 6.
59%.
How do we feel about 16.6?
Better than 16.4,
We do.
not as good as 16.7, but we're not getting the money from anywhere else.
Because I mean, 50,000 from there and 25,000 as just another part of the general budget or Board of Ed budget, 25,000 in the scheme of things,
So let me,
Well, the other thing moved it the other day, .02. The money we added
and that was
back.
how much? That was 17,000?
The money that we added back.
24,000.
Yeah, so,
So
okay,
the
so
money
you've got
we
your
added
number.
back moved it to .02.
So let me ask you this, and so you see that there's, so moving $50,000 brings you to 16.6, you said, right? 16.6%. So somewhere between $50,000 and zero, you're gonna be able to move money and it's gonna stay at 16.7.
3,000, she said, didn't you?
Oh, is that, it's 3,000, really?
Didn't
I
you
would
say
thought
we're
it was a
at
little
3,000?
bit more.
We are, so 16.7% of our 2024 audited revenues was 6,549,336. If we take out $700,000, we are at 6,554,793. So we're about $6,000 off of that. That'll bring you.
You know how you get that rounding
right to
sometimes,
that
and you
percent-
could,
Right to that percentage.
you were going, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. That's a bad idea.
So you're.
Because there's that,
So you're 45,000, give or take, maybe?
What number can come out of there that you would be comfortable with that puts us in a positive situation with the bond ratings and everything else we're talking about?
Not my decision, that's really your decision. Like town manager said, and I said, the 16.7 is the recommendation of the GFOA. That is kind of like, if you are at that level, that's a good level for you to have. But that does not mean that you can't utilize some portion and bring yourself under that 16.7. The problem, and it's not necessarily a problem, but the road that we've been going down because of the difficulty of the budget last year, and we took that huge chunk, we were upwards of 22%. We allocated $2,050,000 to inject into our capitals. You're using your fund balance for capital expenditures and for capital improvements for the town. So you're utilizing what you are bringing in surplus, so, which is a good thing. You're not just letting it sit there and build and build and build. You're using it, and that's what it is for when you need to use it. The issue becomes, you don't have that, it's gonna limit your flexibility going forward. So when you have an emergency, when you have a potential budget failure at some point, you don't have the ability to inject further into your capitals, to fund your capitals. That, I wanna say, excess surplus is depleting. So we cannot continue down the road of depleting that excess that has been built up since the 2013s and.
But in your opinion, $50,000, will that make a difference?
That's, again, that's not up to me, it's where
Right.
you're comfortable.
Right.
I mean, I'm not allocating any because I like to maintain the flexibility and it
Understood.
obviously is gonna put us on, it gives us more flexibility to weather a storm that comes. If you have a storm that comes and you don't know and you have something catastrophic that happens,
And it
that
does.
you need not $700,000 or $50,000, that you need $5-6 million, where are you gonna get it now? Because you're chipping away at that ability to.
Problem is, we are faced with emergencies right now.
Right,
The school roof is leaking
Right.
right now.
So
Public
is
Works
that-
building is falling down right now. We have to address these things. And I remember the solar presentation on the roof well over a year ago on the school. We've talked about that way too long, right? I don't know how we keep ignoring these things and think, okay, well, we'll pay for them. That money never shows up either.
I don't think they're ignored, Paul. I think the issue is, it's always about, like, everybody wants to know that you're getting the right answers, right? So they just said that the money that they would get from the solar electricity kept changing with this company, kept changing up, kept changing there, and you need to have a solid number there. I don't think it was like, you know, it was ignored or anything. I think it's just that, and it's always this way. I mean, look at what's happening right now.
But if the roof's leaking, Candy, we should hear about it every month we're here. Someone should be in front of us going, the roof's leaking, we can't stick our finger in the holes anymore, we
Right.
gotta fix the roof.
Yeah, well, you have a capital item in here, that, the whole capital budget that was presented back on March 15th, and their budget, to be fair to them as well.
But how long's the roof been leaking?
Well, the
On
roof
and
has
off
always
years.
needed,
Years.
the roof is
That's what I'm
always.
talking about, is
Yeah, but the
years.
roof has always needed to be done, right? But it's always down now, it's like, you either, where do you put the money? You know, and nobody wants tax increases. And we don't have, the state has not kept up with increases. And we've been through this whole thing all the time. So,
The problem is, now we're faced with a over 9% increase for Winston Public, right? And we've been debating this budget for the last 3 weeks because of the increase.
It's a town building, it's not a school.
But we should have, what I'm saying is now we're faced with this massive budget and we have a leaky roof we have to deal with because we haven't taken care of it for the last couple of years, is what I'm trying to get to. We cannot ignore or not ignore, however you want to say it. But we should, if this has been leaking for years, we should have addressed it years ago and not wait until we have a massive budget that we're trying to wrestle our way through.
Well, regardless of that, here we are.
Here we are.
Here we are.
And I don't think, it's not unique to Winston. It is every town, because what happens is you are focused on next year. And that's I think that's the downfall of every town, is regardless of how much capital planning you try to do, the focus narrows to what is the impact on people's taxes next year. So you balance between the operating needs and the school's operating needs. And typically, what gets pushed down the road is capital improvements, because if it goes out to the taxpayers, they're looking at their wallet. So it's not unique to Winston, and I think it's even in the affluent towns, it happens also. As much capital planning as you do, it becomes a battle of operating versus capital.
like even doing Hinsdale. I mean, look at the vote on Hinsdale. People did not want, there was, you know, it passed, but it didn't pass like significantly. The trying to do the renovation, trying to make a good school, and so that you didn't have leaky roofs that you had at Bachelor, and then you didn't have old infrastructure in there. I mean, and that was, the goal of doing that was to address the school buildings and the issues, and we did that, and people still fought the payments on it. And people still fight payments on it. Just this morning, on, having to catch it on Facebook, they're having a big argument over the car taxes and how much the car taxes are gonna be, and they're having this big argument over it, and they're not gonna vote, and they're gonna vote no, and they don't like the car tax. Well, we didn't do this car system, and some people recognize that. But now you have all this out there already going against the budget. And people, if you don't have the funding, then you end up choosing. So like Public Works, their wheeled excavator, or there was a time when they didn't have hardly anything and their trucks were falling apart. And so and the police cruisers too. So when we could, starting in 15, 16, when we got the money back and we started to stabilize the funds, we were starting to do a plow truck a year. We were starting to do a couple cruisers a year. Everything was starting to incrementally start moving in that. So we've been better at catching up with all of that. And you can't do it all at once. So that's where borrowing comes in. That's where the road bonds came in, is because you could never do it in a regular budget, right? So that's why borrowing the money for the roof, it's like at home, some people, we can, you have money put aside and you put it aside to do your roof. Other people don't, and they go get a home equity loan. And so.
But they address the roof when it's leaking, that's the thing.
Not everybody, not everybody.
They
So
address
the
it.
previous superintendent felt it was more important to provide education for the students and not lay off people, and did not believe that the town would support the money that was needed to replace the roof, which is why she made the choices that she did.
I would have liked the Board of Ed to come and say, we need to do the roof, is all I'm saying, right?
So-
We need to deal with these problems when they happen. And for us to not have it come up regularly until the leak is fixed, to me, just doesn't seem like we're planning ahead or taking care of the buildings like we should. That's all I'm saying. It's not your fault. Whatever decisions were made with the previous superintendent were made. But to sit here and go, the thing's been leaking for 3 years and we haven't addressed it, just surprises that we need to do a better job.
I'm gonna,
But yeah, here we are.
I mean, people come and seal the holes, we're not letting it rain in on the children, but I've seen it personally rain in like 4 different places this year. We get new leaks, we do cover them up.
Well, the problem with roofs that old is you walk out, this is where I fought with my company, I did get the roof. But they'd say, Bill, we got a leak, go fix it. So I'd walk out and fix the leak. I'd walk back, and a
Create
week
2 more
later, I had
leaks.
2 more leaks. Because where I walked on to fix the leak, I actually broke the roof and
Yes, you
created
did.
2 more.
Yeah.
This has been a problem for 40 years, because when I hear that there's 4 or 5 layers of roof, it should have been stripped and a new roof put back on. Now, oh, we can do it cheaper, we'll put a covering over it. Well, now you're like this. It's gotta go.
So-
Tom, real quick. Can we play the grant game with this at all? Is there any way to put a new roof on with a white roof and say, hey, it's more energy efficient? And we're gonna reduce the air conditioning costs of the school? Can we get some assistance here?
It's possible. It does depend on state and federal programs that offer that type of assistance for this specific purpose. It sounds like you have a lead with the solar option that kind of is up the
Potentially.
alley of this. I would say start with that. I think that's a good route to go. It's a good route to explore.
I agree.
But with some uncertainty at the federal level and then the state almost being in a similar position, I would assume no for right now. Let's
Okay.
assume no, but keep solar on the table as an option, or that route as an option.
so our team met today, not knowing where the board may want to go, but always having something of it. It's not much, and it was gonna be like the end-all, be-all, last-ditch effort. So we had Mr. Rollins in earlier, happy to report that our new trucks are spreading salt a lot more efficiently than they ever have, believe it or not. When we had to load up the salt shed and we had all of the snow and ice in February, him and the superintendent of streets were shocked how much actual salt we still had left with all the salt. So Jim came back today, and currently in the budget, the salt line is at $200,000. Was it 15 or 10? It was 185, 10. He's recommending that we drop that to $190,000. There's 10 there. And then meeting with Anne Marie and Tom, seeing where employees are gonna end up with some leaving, retirements, moving away. We feel confident that we can drop the medical insurance line $15,000. There's 25 grand to get you towards the 50. I was using that as possibly like but you've been wrestling for an hour over this, so I had 25
Let us
grand.
go through all that, and then you tell us
Well,
we got
because I didn't know where
55.
you were going after this, but I had to somewhat stop, because I don't know where we're gonna go next, so it was kind of the end-all, be-all. There's 25 grand there if we change those 2 line items. The other 25, tell me where to go, because
Take it out of the undesignated fund balance, 25.
So take 75.
Huh?
Take 75 more?
oh, I was at 50, they're at 75, I'm sorry, that's
Well,
right.
no, I mean,
You were at, are you looking to get to 100? What are you looking to get to a dollar amount?
I would put 50 in.
In
I
total?
would do the 50. I know it might be low and stuff, but
So
I
take
think that
Paul's
we have.
25 and 25 from the fund balance? There's your 50.
And this is a contingency if the solar doesn't work out, which I think with the way the economy is and the companies out there so hungry, you're probably gonna find a program.
And the reason, I mean, this budget has to pass, right? If this budget doesn't pass, then we can't plan to fix leaky roofs. That's why, it's not that people don't wanna fix them, it's not that people haven't heard of all the issues, it's just that you can't get the budget passed and you can't get new money, then you can't spend it. So we would have to really support this budget going out to make sure it passes. Otherwise, everything is in jeopardy, and the next things will be cuts and bones. It will be, because if we start laying off services. I mean, look, we already lost the services of a full-time planner, we've already lost the services of the social service director, right? We've already lost services over on the other side. There's already been services lost, there will be more services lost.
You gonna make a motion for that?
So I've highlighted the line item, obviously, for one, and I would either recommend either the mayor or Selectman Marino, because they can see it. You would want to reduce the salt line item for 200,000 to 190. I'll go to the next one after, if this one goes.
Is it 205 or?
No, yeah, it's, if you slide way over, it's 200. This was prior years, remember, we look at 3 years.
So we're gonna reduce this by 20?
You're gonna reduce this line item by $10,000, putting it at $190,000.
I can see it.
Okay.
Okay.
I know it. I make a motion that we reduce line 1-311, 853-00000, salt.
59.
850. I think my
He
mouse was in the
had
way.
the cursor in the wrong spot.
Okay, 859 by $10,000.
Second.
All right, we have a motion, a second. Any discussion on it? All in favor? Unanimous?
And let me just get to the insurance line. Health insurance, it's this one right here.
15,000?
You're gonna reduce that line item by 15,000. Tom, do you have the, because I don't wanna slide over, because I gotta, what's the, it's 1.5, what's
1.1 right now.
1.1,
If you
even?
just make the motion to reduce
To reduce it by
15
15,000,
is
that'll
fine.
cover, okay.
I move that we reduce health insurance account 1-918-900-0002-0000 by $15,000.
Second.
We have a motion, we have a second. Any discussion on it? All in favor? We're at 25,000.
Then I would motion that we add $25,000 transfer to capital general fund, correct? That line item?
Nope, it's actually going to be, because you're gonna take 25 out of fund balance, correct?
Yes.
So you're just gonna motion to revise the fund balance allocation from 700 to $725,000 included on the capital schedule.
Revise. So I'd like to revise the capital
The,
fund
the fund balance allocation.
allocation from $700,000 to $725,000.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Troy. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? We're at
And then we have to make a capital line item.
Then I'd like to make a motion to transfer $50,000
No, you'd make,
Create.
add,
or
add-
add $50,000 to the capital expenditure line under Pearson School roof engineering costs.
We have a line item, I would just add it to that critical projects funding.
Let me shrink this down a little bit. I literally just saw it on my screen. Oh, Board of Ed right here, item number 3, Board of Education, BOE critical project funding. Add it right to that. So you wouldn't have to create a line item. We would just plug in $50,000.
Do you want to revise your motion?
Yeah.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bill. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous.
Do that one. That was only an hour.
Got any other hours up your sleeve for us?
I actually got another one.
All right, Troy, what do you
I
got?
have no more money, so.
So, I would like to make a motion that we hire a temporary, meter maid to have her salary paid for by her tickets, hopefully, and not, no cost to the taxpayers. Also as a dog, poop enforcer.
Is there a job description for that?
Paul's gonna write that one, not me.
Thanks.
I mean, it's very important, our, you know, people that are, that's our grand list. We need to keep our businesses open. People are abusing the parking system very, very much right now. And the dogs are creating a mess on the sidewalks, creating hazards for people. And I think the last one we had, was able to pretty much fund herself, with the tickets. We got to keep those tickets. It's not a speeding ticket, it's a town ticket. So, I'm proposing a part-time position. There could be a stipend, there could be, I don't know how we're gonna pay for it, but I'm pretty sure she'll be able to, or he will be able to recoup their money. So it'll be no cost, but it's something that's needed that was let go.
What's your dollar amount, Select?
I don't have a dollar amount.
Well, you're talking about funding a position and you're
I mean, you
potentially.
started as a couple-day position, a week, and then if it works out and they're making their salary by getting tickets, so you make it a full-time position.
Are they gonna work during the day or at night?
Probably both.
Is it two people then?
With the
Part-timers.
Because if you're
The
going
last-
part-timer.
I was there when the meter parking position was there. What happened is the person there, the cost started to exceed the ticket collection.
That's because
And
people
then,
started paying attention.
then there was no money. Yeah, people start paying attention, then the cost
Right.
exceeds the collection.
If we
And
get
then
to
your
that
collection
point, we
numbers
can
have to go. Another way
rethink
to adjust the issue is to put an overnight parking ban in some places. There's one section that I see in town that we talked about, and when you all came on board, we were toying with an overnight parking ban from like 2 in the morning to 4 in the morning. And the point to that was to try to get some of the resident parking in from Elm Street to the Y. Elm Street to Union Street is where there's a significant parking issue. Significant. The rest of the, up that way, I don't think there's an issue. At night, down by the other end, there's a lot of people there, but in that one area is a lot of residents. There is parking behind our firehouse, there's parking at Bank of America.
They don't park there.
I know they don't, but in a tenant situation, they would be allowed to park in our municipal lots. It's not on Main Street. So another way to maybe solve some of these issues is to have that parking after, like I said, in the middle of the night, when it doesn't affect restaurants, doesn't affect stores or anything like that, where the police officers could then identify who was there and ticket it. It's kind of what you see when there's snow, right? You drive down the road, you see where there's cars that are still there with a lot of snow on them. And it's usually in that section of road. So, right, so it may be a non-monetary lift to try to resolve some of those issues that you're talking about.
That could work, but you'd have to do the enforcement.
Yes.
And to me, the enforcement would be, one warning, one ticket, and then it's just hook and toe.
It's
I
kind
mean,
of
We
like,
come out,
if
geez,
you-
we did you last month,
if
we
you-
did you a month before, you just hook and toe it.
I mean, if the meter maid pays her own salary, I don't think there's a problem. And it's time for people to realize that they can't be doing what they used to do. Or, they gotta stop. And, I mean, at some point, if it exceeds where we have to start funding it, well, then we stop it. Then he or she did their job. We need to get back to that.
What time of day would you want it though? I mean, you're gonna have
I
it
mean, there's
all
people
night,
that
all
walk
day
their
and all
dogs
night?
all night too, that they ain't picking up after the dogs. They might wanna work some nights too.
I thought was under the impression that now that the police force was up to the appropriate amount of officers, that they were going to have more active foot patrol on Main Street. So that would certainly
They're still in the academy.
not, we would need a meter maid with that.
We need them to catch the speeders, never mind the parkers.
So, did we keep the recreation maintainer? We increased that from part-time to full-time, didn't we?
We did.
I don't see where we get the money for this.
I guess just a few questions from a management point of view. Who does this person ultimately report to? Is it a union position or non-union position? When it was the individual before, when the position was funded,
They went through the police department.
went through the police department, was it in the particular union or not? I have a lot of,
I think they should go through you. They're not a union, it's not a union position, it's a part-time position, a couple days a week.
and then, and I don't know the answer to this, they would obviously have ticket writing ability.
Correct.
Who gives them that power to write the ticket, and is there any, cost of associating with, they have to,
You have to have the
pass?
police chief or whatever.
Yeah, again, I mean, I know I'll obviously have some research on it, there's
I'm
obviously
just
gonna
saying,
be a
I don't think
ramp-up
it'll cost
period.
the town money, but it's something that's needed.
Well, would we be better off doing an hour or two of overtime? For the police officers to start to start that.
I mean, you have to do it through, during business hours, because that's where the people are screwing up the businesses for parking. The residents are
If you're gonna
staying there.
utilize overtime, you could do it all 3 shifts.
Yeah.
You could have first shift do it, work an hour, you could do it during second shift, you could do it during
I mean, that's fine, I
Well,
don't care, as long as somebody does
Like
it.
being free during the day, I'm all fancy free, right? I drive up and down Main Street and stuff. It's that one block that's the problem,
Yeah.
because I can park everywhere else.
Yeah, from Elm Street up is right that way.
Well, during the day, it's Elm to Union. At night, it's just because everything else is popular up the other end.
Right.
I mean, it's good food, right? It's-